Hi, my name is Eric Chiang, and I'm standing in front of 41 Madison Avenue in New York for the start of our journey around the world in 80 hours. The inspiration for this trip came from the Jules Verne classic Around the World in 80 Days, except we're doing it in 80 hours. We're starting in New York, the financial capital of the world, and we'll end here 3 days later. And as we make our way through Europe and Asia, we'll be discussing many economic concepts that can be learned simply by opening our eyes to the world around us.
Technological improvements in transportation have reduced costs and increased productivity in trade, all led by the incentives of firms to get goods, services, and people across the globe as quickly as possible.
Tonight we'll be flying Singapore Airlines' brand new Airbus A380 double-decker plane to Frankfurt, Germany.
Because of intense oligopoly competition, tonight's 8-hour flight was just $300, well below average cost, but still better than letting the seat go empty on this 500-seat plane, as long as the marginal cost is covered, which is basically the cost of dinner, breakfast, and this little amenity kit.
All mobile phones and other portable electronic devices must remain turned off.
We take off from New York at 8 p.m., fly 7.5 hours, covering 3,851 miles and crossing 6 time zones, landing in Frankfurt, Germany the next morning.
Welcome to Frankfurt, Germany, home of the European Central Bank. We just stepped out of the foreign exchange booth where I converted $50 to 36 euros, which is actually not a bad deal. Had we come in 2008, we would have only received about 30 euros. The Eurozone crisis has really caused demand for euros to drop, causing it to depreciate relative to currencies like the US dollar. All right, so we have about 3 hours here in Frankfurt for our next flight to Tokyo, so let's see what 36 euros can buy. Hopefully at least lunch, so I'm getting kind of hungry. Come on.
The Frankfurt airport offers restaurants for those with high willingness to pay, as well as restaurants for those with a tighter budget constraint.
Duty-free shops exempt you from all the taxes of the country you're leaving from, but they're not necessarily the best deal. I just bought this M&Ms at a duty-free shop for $9 and paid no tax. But I suspect you can probably get a better deal at Walmart, even if you have to pay tax. The best deals at duty-free shops are those with high consumption taxes, like alcohol, tobacco, and cosmetics.
And we're off again, taking off at 1 p.m., flying over 11 hours, covering 5,834 miles and crossing 8 more time zones, landing in Tokyo, Japan the next morning.
May I have your attention, please? The baggage space will be crowded just before we arrive. Please pick up your baggage and get ready to get off before the train arrives at your stop.
Right, we're 28 hours into our around-the-world journey. We made it to Tokyo, Japan, our second stop. Tokyo, Japan is the largest metropolis in the world, and it's a perfect blend of futuristic technologies and traditional culture like the Imperial Palace behind me. I just stepped out of the bank where I exchanged some US currency into some Japanese yen. In Japan, there are 4 banknotes. There's the 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, and 10,000 yen notes, which are equivalent to 14, 28, 70, and 140 US dollars. Now, those are huge values compared to the banknotes that Americans typically use, which are the 1, 5, 10, and 20. Now, why are Japanese banknotes so large?
The Japanese generally don't like using credit cards, so they need large bills to pay for purchases. By holding large sums of cash, which is a money leakage, the money multiplier in Japan is likely to be smaller.
This is the Shibuya district of Tokyo. Coming to Tokyo is like stepping a few years into the future with high-tech electronics, cool vending machines, and earthquake-proof buildings everywhere. This is also the Shibuya Scramble, where you can see just thousands of people cross the intersection every few minutes of every day.
A touchscreen vending machine, an example of how technology is used everywhere in Japan.
We're at the Tsukiji Fish Market, which is the world's largest fish market, where over 6 million pounds of fish are sold every day.
The fish trade is so efficient that fish bought in Japan today can be served in a sushi bar in LA by tomorrow. All this food is making me hungry, so we're heading to the Ginza district to Kawamura Steakhouse to try their famous Kobe beef. Kobe beef is considered the most tender and marbled steak in the world and can cost over $20 an ounce. It's so rare that in Japan, each cow even has its own birth certificate that restaurants must carry to prove they are serving authentic Kobe beef. I'm about to try my first bite.
We had such a great time on our 8-hour stop here in Tokyo, but now it's time to go back to the airport to board our ANA flight to the Philippines. I'll see you there.
We're now leaving Tokyo, flying 5 hours, covering 1,900 miles and crossing back one time zone, arriving in Manila in the Philippines, our third stop. We've now traveled for 42 hours, and this will be our longest layover with 15 hours to spend. Now, because I haven't showered since we left New York, I decided to do everyone around me a favor by checking into a hotel tonight and getting washed up. So tonight we're staying at the Peninsula Hotel in the heart of the city. The room rate was $138. Because the Philippines is a developing country, the cost of living here is still quite low. Had we stayed at the Peninsula in New York tonight, the room rate there would have been $595, or over 4 times as much. So although the per capita income in the Philippines is just 1/10 that of the United States, part of this is offset by the fact that goods and services are far less expensive here. All right, time for that bath. Being a country with over 7,000 islands, Filipinos rely heavily on their cell phones rather than landlines for communications, and is an example of how they use technology to help promote economic growth. Another advantage here is that the literacy rate is 94% and wages are as low as 50 cents an hour. One of the fascinating aspects of traveling is to see how global influence is everywhere, with modern malls and restaurants all catering to the local tastes. Of course, there's trade-offs with economic development, as you can see from the thick smog in the air, which are partially caused by the large use of vehicles called jeepneys in Manila, which are very colorful but not necessarily the most environmentally friendly means of transportation. And like many countries recovering from the recession, there are still long lines of applicants for jobs like at this department store. Well, that's about all the time we have here in Manila, so it's time to head back to the airport where we take off on Philippine Airlines at 5 p.m., flying 12 hours covering 6,580 miles, crossing 8 time zones including the international dateline, where we get our day back we lost from crossing all 24 time zones, allowing us to land in Vancouver the same day. Well, welcome back to North America. It's 72 hours into our around-the-world trip, and we're in Vancouver, British Columbia. This was the site of the 2010 Winter Olympics, and in preparation, the Canadian government used fiscal policy by spending billions of dollars to showcase the city and its airport. Our stay in Vancouver is really short, so now we have to head back in and catch our Air Canada flight back to New York. Let's go. Our final flight takes off at 4 p.m., flying 5 hours covering 2,430 miles and crossing our final 3 time zones, arriving in New York at midnight to a fantastic reception at the airport, but leaving us only 40 minutes to get back to our starting point in Manhattan. So we made it back to our starting point here at 41 Madison. According to my watch, we've traveled for 79 hours and 55 minutes. So we made it around the world in under 80 hours, and we traveled for over 21,000 miles. Along the way, we've encountered many economic examples that will hopefully be lessons that will stay with us forever. Thank you so much for joining me on this venture. I hope to see you again somewhere in the world. So long.